Last weekend we went to Ardmore for the Windmill Nationals. My dad made one run and we broke a lifter, tore up some other stuff. So in this one, I'm gonna be giving you guys my top 10 bracket racing tips. Not sure if I'm qualified to be giving any tips, but I've had this requested a few times, so I'm gonna give it a shot. One thing I do wanna say before we get into it is that these are just my opinions. I mean, we're bracket racing, there's a million different ways to do it, and I'm not sure anybody has it completely figured out. These are just things that I like to think about and things that work for me, so let's get into it. Tip number 1, write everything down. Things I like to write down: the motor and the transmission temp. Just try to remember what they were when I took off. Any little thing that happened during the run, maybe the tires shook a little bit, maybe I kind of almost flinched, maybe I think I anticipated it, stuff like that. Obviously, all the incrementals about the run, the delay that I had, the delay I needed to be perfect, but the big thing I focus a lot on is the weather. So I use this as Bracket Racing Elite's logbook. You can get them online for like 10 bucks. I like how the weather's laid out, and I don't have a weather station or anything, but I like to use Air Density online. I can just pull it up on my phone when I'm at the track. They have a ton of different tracks. The weather updates pretty regularly, so definitely try that out. And I know it seems like a lot to write down, but if you just break it up run by run, as soon as he gets back to the trailer, write it all down, and then all of a sudden you have all this information that you can reference and help you make better decisions as you go throughout the day. Tip number 2, know yourself. Now, this tip directly piggybacks off tip number 1, write everything down, because when you're writing everything down, what you need to be doing is learning about yourself and figuring out your tendencies. For example, let's say you don't eat as much, get a little bit shaky, and this happens to you on the tree. If you don't sleep as much, this happens to you. Maybe you roll 5 to 10 thou out of the box, and every time you do that, you're dead late. Maybe that's because you were scared to go red. I know one thing for me is if I'm racing an opponent I think's a little bit better, I tend to hit the tree faster, so my odds of going red's a little bit higher. So whenever that's the case, I tend to add a little bit to my box. So it's not even really about fixing any of these little problems or things about yourself. If you've written everything down, you know this is your tendency, just play into it, and I guarantee you'll win a lot more rounds. Tip number 3, hold something. This is probably the most advanced tip I'm gonna have in here, and one where some people might disagree, but that's okay. But I would say dialing honest, or what you think your car is gonna run, is not the play normally. Now let me show you guys what I'm thinking here. Okay, let's say you're dialed honest, and you are 5 dead on with a 5. 10 total, amazing lap. You can always lock somebody out if your package is better than their light. So if he's 12, all right, he can't win. Even if he's holding, W, good job. 2 pieces of the puzzle though had to go right. One and on your tree and what you ran, 2 pieces of the puzzle had to be better than 1 piece of his puzzle. So how often is that gonna happen? Probably not as often as you'd like. Let's go over here and say this time you're 11, dead 6. Let's say he matches you, which is much more likely. Now the guy who's holding now has this entire 6 thou to get in on, and if he does, it's an L. How about every time he's better than you and you're 11, dead 6? Now he's 005. Now he's got 6 on you here, plus this 6. Now he's got 12 thou to get in on you, and that's another L. Now let's think about those times where you unexpectedly speed up and you didn't know, but you're holding it to the floor because you're dialed honest. So let's say you're 10 and 5 thou under. Now you might be saying, well, if he's worse than me on the tree or the same and he takes the stripe, I'm gonna win this because he's gonna break out worse. Well, let's say he is the same on the tree and he's holding and screws up the finish line. He gives it back. That's an L. Let's say he thinks he was dead late. He thinks he was 30. He's holding. He's not liking it. He gets behind on purpose. That's an L. Let's say he actually has you on the tree. You're 10 and 5 thou under again, and he's 8. Now there's a chance he can take less than that starting line advantage. If he takes 2 thou or less, don't matter that you're fast. He is still going to win, and it's going to be another L. Just failed at explaining this, but let's say now you're 9 and you're hoping to be dead 4, right? And the worst thing that can happen to you while you're dialed honest happens to you, and that is that your car slows down. Let's say you slow down 15, now you're 19 thou over with a 9 light, 28 total. All of a sudden you're not that great, and it's a likely L. So dialing honest, I mean, there are ways to win, but there are sure a lot of ways to lose. And in all of these instances, you are the easiest target that you're gonna be for your opponent, especially when they're holding, because you're not planning on doing anything at the finish line. So that brings me to what my tip originally was, which was hold something. And if you wanna know how much, let me show you guys kind of what I'm thinking. So how much to hold? A good thing you can think about is going down the track with a negative, and that's way too small, a negative package. What do I mean by that? Let's say you're set up to be 10 on the tree. Realistically, you could be 5, you could be 15. We're not perfect. Miss it, you could be 20. But set up 10, you could be 5 to 15 often. So I would hold more than 15. So let's say you choose to hold 20. If you let go better than 20, you're gonna be going down the track with this negative package here. So let's say you're 13, okay? And you are going down the track negative 20. So you're representing a negative 7 thou package, all right? Now, it doesn't matter if you're against the best driver in the world. It doesn't matter if they were 000 on you and they're doing the best job that they could possibly do at the finish line. They're taking 000 on you. If they're 000, taking 000 on you, and you're going down the track negative 7, they are 100% of the time about to break out. And in this instance, they're gonna break out if they try to wheel you through by 7 thou. So what I'm getting at is hold more than your light's gonna be, and make it hard on them. Like, this is gonna make it hard on them every time. Remember, in this instance, that you are still 200s quick. So you got to kill that at some point. Otherwise, you're just gonna break out by 200s. But it's making it hard on them, and that's the goal. You're forcing them to realize, okay, I haven't killed enough, and to be disciplined enough to get behind you in order to go dead on, giving yourself a lot better odds to win the round. Kind of sum up this tip, I would say that dialing honest isn't always bad. I'd say it's best when you don't think the other driver's gonna lay down the best lap, kind of minimizing your risk of screwing it up. It's also not bad if you don't think the other driver can judge you. So if there's a big mile-per-hour difference, if you're a dragster, they're a door car, then dialing honest is okay. But I think that using that negative package rule is a good tool to have, and just making it hard on them. That's the goal. Tip number 4, keep your game plans simple. When you are ready to go down the track, it's very important to only keep a few plans. This could only be one plan for one person. This could be 5 plans for another person. If you think you can decipher between 5 plans and execute one of them going down the track, then by all means have 5 plans, but don't have too awful many. For example, if you miss the tree and it looks like this, you're gonna do this. If you hit the tree and it's dead even, you're gonna do this. If you hit the tree, you're behind, you're gonna do this. Keep it simple, because the game plan that took you an hour to think of before that round is probably better than the one you came up with in 4 seconds. It's all about staying disciplined and executing the plan. Tip number 5, the way you practice. I have a few different things I want to talk about with this. The first is, if you have a practice tree, don't just sit there and hit it like 20 times and then think you're insane and that's your practice. Like, if you want to hit it a bunch of times, I would recommend putting some delay in the other side. Give you a few seconds to just think after you let go, like, okay, I think I'm 10 on the tree. See how close you are. If you can get really good at calling your light and then transfer that to the track, that's going to be a huge piece of information that you have and an advantage on your opponent. But how I would recommend hitting the practice tree, make it just like a race. Go up there, take a time run hit, just hit it one time, and just don't come back to that thing for like an hour until second time run or its first round, and think, okay, I was this, I'm gonna put this in the box. Take your one hit, see what you are, write it down, come back in 40 minutes. Second round, hit the tree. Go till the final, those last few rounds, maybe they're 15 minutes apart, and take your hit. But if you just hit it over and over and over, if you're not practicing how you're actually gonna race, then it's not good practice. Second thing with practice, watch people. Watch MotorMania. That MotorMania is huge. I feel like that's why a lot of young kids are becoming really good, is because they have that access all the time. Watch these racers, seeing how they're doing it. Maybe watch a pair go down the track, be like, oh, okay, I think he had the tree. You're watching how it plays out. They cross the finish line. You're in your head like, okay, he got there first. He's gonna win unless he broke out. Do I think he broke out? And then see what happened. Listen for the recap of the race. Which styles work, which styles appeal to you, can be a tremendous help. Last thing I want to talk about practicing most effectively would be when you're trying to learn how to hold something. You don't want to do that for the first time in a race. If you don't know a single way to kill 300s, you should never be holding 300s. Whenever you get a red light against you, whenever you red light yourself, whenever it's a time run, preferably when it's just a test and tune day, that's when you you want to try these things. You never want to try something like that in an actual round, because your chances of losing that round are a lot higher, and then you're just slowing down your progress. Tip number 6, fine-tuning your routine and your setup. Now, that routine has got to be the exact same every time. I know this sounds obvious, but we're bracket racing and we're playing a game of thousandths, and as soon as something's slightly off, you might as well just chalk it up unless you get lucky. The way you come off the button needs to be the exact same. The amount of pressure you put on the button needs to be the same. The way you stage needs to be the same. Every single part of the run got to be the same. If something's not going well for you, it's worth making a change. To help you figure out if something's not going well for you, I'd recommend recording yourself however you need to. Camera inside the car, somebody else from outside the car can definitely help you identify problems, but it is worth changing something if it's not going well, because it needs to be comfortable for you. And that gets me into the setup part. The trans brake button itself, the way you sit in the car, the way the pedals feel, positioning, just everything needs to be comfortable for you in order to have the most success. Tip number 7, confidence. This is probably the most important tip I can give you. Just be confident. That'll win you the most rounds out of any of these tips. To get that confidence, there are a lot of things that you cannot care about. You can't care about who you're racing. If you have a good game plan, I don't care who it is. If you're worried about somebody's ability to be better than you in 4, 5, 6 seconds, you shouldn't be, because anybody can lose, especially in that amount of time. You can't care about how the bulbs come on. Like, you could flicker it a million times. They could flicker it a million times. You guys could both be flickering it at the same time, and then they go off at the same time and you're both in. You can't care if a fly lands on your visor. If it's one of those racers who does a burnout quickly, backs up quickly, turns a pre-stage on, you just got to know, like, they can't do anything until you pre-stage. You can take as long as you want. Ultimately, whenever I'm ready to pre-stage, I've accepted every single thing that can happen, everything that's off or weird, and I'm like, okay, nothing's gonna bother me. As soon as both our stage bulbs come on, no matter how it happens, I'm going to lock my eyes to the top bulb and I'm gonna react. And I think that's a good way to go about it. That's something that works for me. Confidence can win you a lot of rounds, and the fact that you know nothing's gonna bother you can give you a lot of confidence. Tip number 8, call your lap before you see it. Now, this tip is kind of a mini challenge you can throw into your race days, even on time runs. If you take off, try to call what your reaction time was. You know it's going to show you on the scoreboard, but don't look at it. And if you're similar speed to your opponent, look over at him, cross the finish line, say to yourself, he got there by this much, or you got there by this much, and then look at the time slip, see how you did. If it's an actual race, do the same thing. I think I was this on the tree. I got the win. I was probably this far above because I killed about this much. And if you do this a lot and you start to get it down, all of a sudden in rounds, you're going down the track, you know a little bit more about where you stand in the race, ways that you know how to turn the wind light on from this position. Just a good little challenge that I think is often overlooked that can make you a better racer. Tip number 9, play the odds. Now, I know playing the odds is something everybody does at everything in life. I think it can often get overlooked in the heat of a race when it's all happening so fast. Example would be, if you think you crushed the tree, you're like low 00, like how did I not just go red right there? Say you're dialed honest and you're racing a fast car that's flying up on you, it's close, you don't know what to do. If you think you're dialed honest, just give it a half rip of the throttle, put it 5 thou above, put it 1 above, make sure you don't break out. You're low 00 on the tree, even if you're 1 above, that's a really good package, probably 15 total or better. The wind light will likely come on. So that's what I mean playing the odds. The other side of that, if you're really late on the tree, it's likely you need to get behind. The math's just not gonna work out for you. If you are not driving the finish line well, dial the car and just let the car do the work for you. If you think the car has a good chance of picking up on this run, be confident that it's gonna and drive it accordingly. And like I said, everybody's trying to play the odds, but more of what I'm saying is it's about going that extra mile and looking for those ways to increase your odds, because it might be the difference. Like, you might have a 50% chance to win a round, but you gave it a little bit more thought in a few areas, and all of a sudden you got a 75% chance to win that round, and it might be the difference in your whole event. Tip number 10, kick their ass. How do you do this? Well, if you really think about it, what happens when two great racers race each other? It really is just an execution battle at that point. Who can hit the tree better? Who can put it dead on better? It's really what bracket racing comes down to, and that's why all of my tips so far have been about improving yourself and your own program. And for me, that's writing everything down. That's learning about myself. That's keeping my game plan simple. That's perfecting my routine, not letting anything else get in my head. And all these things are making it harder on the opponent And that way, when you look over and you're about to race a legend, you can be as confident as you're ever going to be that your win light is about to come on. That's going to do it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed my top 10 bracket racing tips. Those were in no particular order. Do let me know what you thought down in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time.